Hi guys, I'm just working my way through some requests, and although I do go over Dickens in some of my videos for A Christmas Carol, there was a couple of requests for something more obvious about just Charles Dickens in his life and his writing. Charles Dickens then is interested in changing the world, okay, and he tries to do this via social reform. When we're talking about changing the world, he wants to shape the climate of the society, and he wants to shape it so that the powers that be can change things, because it can only come from those in a position of authority. So he isn't telling us how we should change things. He isn't telling us what would be a better kind of way to run society, but he is just pointing out the issues that the society within Victorian England were facing. And we get that through industrialisation, we get that through child labour, we get that through quite a lot of the issues that he portrays through his works. He exposes the evils, as I say, of industrialisation and the work that people suffered, and the way that they suffered through these horrendous jobs and the conditions. Child labour was high up on Dickens' list, and obviously the government at the time. What he does quite cleverly with people like Oliver Twist and Pip and I suppose Tiny Tim to a certain extent, but obviously there's these characters across all of his books really, is he places them in an environment whereby the upper class readers, because remember it would be the middle to upper class that were reading these books, would be able in some way to feel sympathy and or relate to those people, those characters that are suffering the worst. And he does that so that they have that moment of self-reflection. Well, actually, how would I feel if that was me? What if I was exposed to that type of world? He wanted to make being moral and having moral values and being a good human, he wanted to make that popular. Therefore, he was looking for a way to spread his message like wider, a little bit like George Orwell. So how can he get his message to the masses? And one of the ways he did do that obviously was to use the newspaper as a publication and kind of drip feed these messages to people, these political, allegorical kind of subtle messages. He wanted obviously to educate society about the issues, the flaws, the vices that were in circulation within Victorian England, and he does that through entertainment, a little bit, as I say, like George Orwell, as two of our most famous British writers. And the entertaining factor of his books is how he then gets in this educational message. It's quite clever really, isn't it? One of the questions that I was just asked yesterday was, well, why does he choose to use ghosts in A Christmas Carol? Well, Gothic literature was very popular at the time, so if it's popular, then he obviously clung onto the coattails of that and realised he could send a message that way. So obviously he gets a serious message through entertainment, and he knows the middle classes and the upper classes are going to be reading books, so the message is going to hit the target audience, if you like. He, as I say, directs it so that you've got that moment of what if this was my life? Like, that is not the life that I would ever want, and therefore I might feel sorry for people like Oliver Twist and things like that. And he does it by making these characters likeable and memorable. So again, he's not a popular writer because his works were easy to forget. So by making these characters likeable, and people talk about Charles Dickens today and the characters that he's created. We all know Scrooge. People that even haven't read the book know that. So through likeable characters, his message, I suppose, it seems more weighty, doesn't it? However, Charles Dickens himself had this very conflicted life. So whilst he was this confident, staunch writer who's telling you all of these messages and holding up a mirror to society and to ourselves, so we look at how we behave and how we treat others, and he shows us what it would be like if we changed some things within Victorian England. He actually had a troublesome personal life, and whereby he wasn't very happy in his first marriage. He ends up with another woman. He has children, and he is in mass conflict with his children because they, to him, were sponging off him. They were gambling a lot. Interesting, gambling is obviously in a couple of the books. They're drinking a lot. So whilst he was out there portraying this social message of social reform and highlighting our vices as humanity, and as I always say, guys, please watch my video on how to start an English literature essay. English literature is an exploration of humanity and humankind and mankind and how we behave. He himself was internally and externally two very different people. He, as I say, used his own experiences, didn't he? They became massive in his writing. So when he was younger, when he ended up in the blackening factory, he exposes that in David Copperfield, doesn't he? The child labour is absolutely huge through his works, and he hated that experience. And if you again read some of his writing about himself, he hated the people that he met there as well. And these are the people that are in charge of the factory, that are abusing and exploiting the workers, which is why he had this huge problem and wanted a change for the poor law, the child labour, the prostitution to some extent. And then what happens is he ends up in a prison due to his father, but he continues to work in the blackening factory, which is why it's so prevalent in David Copperfield. So much like Orwell, you have somebody who has first-hand experience of the things that they are writing about and the evils of the world that they are trying to show us. And as I said, just remember that he isn't pushing forward any particular way of changing Victorian England, or he isn't claiming that he has a better way of running society, but what he is hoping for is change. Same as Orwell, your big writers with these big messages want to change society for the betterment of mankind, if that makes sense. Again, this was just something quick. Please subscribe to my website if you want more of my playlists, www.staceyray.co.uk. You can subscribe there and I can read and give you feedback on your essays, or you can obviously check out my YouTube videos, again, Stacey Ray, or just catch me on Instagram at Stacey Ray. And massive good luck in your studies, guys. Thank you.